Alright, hello, my name is Jesus and welcome to Write With Me. This is a third video. It should be up soon. Well, whenever you see it, it'll be up. The first video we covered an object as a way to start a story. If you have an object in mind that you want to be central to the story, or at least the beginning of the story, have some sort of importance in the story, I would say start with that. And a lot of times you're told to start from the beginning and work your way to the end, and that doesn't always work for everybody. So start with what you want. If it's an object, great. If it's a person, video 2 has that information. And video 2 is just about kind of how to picture different things about your character. And from that video, I do link to another one that is about the something called a character treatment. And that gives you a little bit more information on how you want to set that up for yourself. And which kind of dovetails into this this video, which is about the setting and the atmosphere. So if you're not sure how to begin or what objects to put into this world, or characters to put into this world, look at the world itself. Where do you want the story to take place? Now, we'll do a little bit of that, but the main reason for this, the reason you want to put this down on in some sort of permanent some sort of permanence, is you want to keep track of where you are in the story based on this world that you created, and the things that you want to put in there will help you keep track. I can't tell you how many times I've gotten lost. I had to go through a whole story to figure out what day of the week I'm in, or the character's in, and so it does help if you know where you are in the story. And I skip around a lot, so if you do the same thing, it's good to know where this part of the story takes place and when this part of the story takes place. Because you don't want to start a day in the evening and end it in the afternoon, only after a few hours. It can be the next day, yes, but you don't want to accidentally go back in time and change something, screw up your own story, I should say. Unless you're trying to be avant-garde, like there's a film where the story is in a loop. So the beginning of the film is actually the end of the film. And it actually works as a loop. So if you want to do something like that, go for it. But this is just for you to get kind of used to setting up the world and the time and the place for it. So what I can do is show you, give you a little heads up on that. So in the story that I'm writing, there is a neighborhood. But in that neighborhood, we also want to know the city where this takes place. And it doesn't actually have to be. If the whole story takes place in this one little neighborhood, we don't need to know the rest of the city. We don't need to know the rest of the world. We can make reference to it in some way, but it's not always necessary. And there's also the state. And in the case of our anybody international, you want to know the country. In the case of somebody who's working with alternate universes, which I've done, you want to know, you need to give us all this information, because the names of the cities and states and countries and world, the planet, may change. in your world, in your creation. So also let us know what this is. So that's a beginning. Now, of the place. The other thing that we need to know is time. So it is the time of day. There's also the month, the year, as Kennedy said, the decade, which is also plays into, is it the decade that you're talking about, or is it the century? Oops. The other thing that we could play with here is season. So we could be talking about winter, autumnal, spring. I'm sorry, I said autumnal. Autumn, spring, fall, well, autumn is fall. Point is, so the season, the year, the decade, the century, all that, if it's important, you want to keep track of that, not just for the reader, but for yourself. Again, you don't want to lose track. Start the day in one decade and then end up in a different century by the end of the day. Again, unless that is part of the story, which would be so awesome. I've seen it a few times in some movies where the character is kind of flipped through time, also flipped through dimensions, which I've also done. So what can we put into the story that will give us this information? A lot of the times, and there's a few ways to do this. Usually the easiest way is the narrator. The narrator is the one who's telling the story from out here, looking down and telling us what's going on. It was funny, it was good. Excuse me. The narrator was actually a character in the story, and this was, if you can, find the Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, the very first movie. We have Rufus telling the viewer what's going on. I'm from the future, this is a great time, and he explains what's going on, and then he pulls us into what's going on in the actual movie. So you can have a narrator who's a character or a narrator who's outside of the story. Either way, this person is telling us all this information. It's not a cheat, it's an easy way to do it. In Greek times, the old ways they did these plays was the narrator would tell us everything. Okay, so the other way to do it is an outsider. So there are the main characters, and then there's this outsider who just shows up. So we're kind of being introduced to all this information as this outsider is introduced to the information. It makes it a natural way, a natural conversation that is had between the main characters who've been living in this world their whole lives and this outsider. So a good way to kind of look at that is, well, the movie Grease. I like movies, okay? I write, but I like movies. So if you look at Grease, we have Sandy, who is the new kid in the school, and we're learning a little bit through her. It's not the whole thing, but we do learn some things from her being introduced to it. Another one is, and it's a little bit of a mix of both of these. So Flashbacks, the character is talking about what happened in the past. The narrator could do the same thing. The narrator is the narrator, the one who tells us everything. Tell us what happened in the past. So we get this overview of what's going on now based on what happened in the past. I've had a few of these. I've done a few of these. One way to do this, and I see this more in the young adult novels, and that is through a diary. So this could be either video or paper, printed. So somebody reads a diary and learns about backstories and things like that. We can be introduced to information just as a normal conversation between two characters who have always been there. Hey, did you remember your wallet? Yes. Okay, great. Did you remember your gun? Like, oh my gosh, I forgot. It's the law. We have to carry a gun. So these are the normal conversations that people have before you go out the door. Hey, don't forget this. Did you remember that? I'll text you to remind you have an appointment, whatever. So information can be given in different ways. A person watching TV for the news and learns about, this 30-year war is still going on, or the biggest mall in the world has now been incorporated as a new city, or something like that, whatever. So we're getting information as a reader from you. Wherever you put it, we will get it. If we don't get it, that's fine. We'll look for it later. But one of the things that annoys me the most is when you hide information, like vital information. Purposely hiding information is not a good idea, unless that is your shtick. It's not for everybody. It's not for a lot of people. But there is a minority. I say it's a minority, but there is a minority of people who seriously want to hunt for information and in a mystery, and cannot stand things that are spoon-fed to the reader. Oops, sorry, I had my fan on this whole time. So that's pretty much where we are when it comes to atmosphere. The setting. Oh, I'm sorry, that was the setting. The atmosphere is more along the lines of the mood. So if your story takes place in a world where there's smog everywhere, and it's even in daylight you can't get much sunlight. It's daytime. You can't get much sunlight. That is a depressing mood. So the atmosphere in that world is depressing. It's always dark, even in the sunlight. So that kind of thing. The trees are always blooming, and there's always sunshine, and there's always flowers. Children are running around laughing and giggling and all these things. So happiness. This world is happy. So yeah, atmosphere does work if you want to go for the dramatic. If it is part of the story, you want to set that up at the beginning, and with this background information, some of this background information, to make sure that we're always understanding this is what's going on. And throughout, you can pepper the story with that information. Oh yeah, it's dark, whatever. So I say so a lot. I do apologize. there it is. This information you want to keep handy in some way. If you have a laptop, you can color code different parts of your story to make sure that it corresponds with day, night, later in the story, different decade, different century, whatever. So color coding is a good way to do it. You can also make sure you leave a note for yourself. This is something that's done in script writing. You give us the scene shot, a description of the scene, nighttime, daytime, whatever. So yeah, hopefully that'll help to get you started. You don't need anything to be completely complete. Things change as you come up with ideas, and just run with it. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be front to back, left to right. It is whatever you want it to be, okay? All right, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. I'm thinking it's going to be storyboarding. So, good luck.